Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'd like to take a look at the Volvo EX30 and the Polestar 4. According to the latest report, Volvo isn't chasing Polestar's rear windowless design. New car companies can be bold, but others like Volvo would rather not follow suit. This is what the Drive has to say. Given Polestar's status as a relatively new car company, it can afford to be bold. The brand proved that with the Polestar 1, its jaw-dropping debut coupe that doesn't get enough love if you ask me. And you know what? Personally, for myself, that's a sentiment that I would completely agree with. The Polestar 1 does not get enough credit, and that's probably in part to the vehicle being in such low supply. There's only 1,500 of these vehicles worldwide. Production on these vehicles were very short. But could this vehicle make a return for Polestar, full electric? But in a way, the Polestar 6 will sort of take over for that. Anyone who wants a Polestar 1, they can now look to the Polestar 6. While the vehicles look almost completely different visually, they're built by the same company. So in regards to Polestar doing it again with the Polestar 4, it's a jaw-dropping experience. A 544 horsepower electric crossover that looks slick. But this vehicle made a lot of controversy around the web, around the car space, or especially electric car space, because it's a car that doesn't feature a rear window. So for Polestar, that's pretty cool. But Polestar can do what it wants. But the key thing to keep in mind is that Volvo has no interest in following in Polestar's footsteps. And why would it? Volvo has always had its own way of doing things, and Polestar is creating its own way of doing its own thing. Both companies are taking slightly different approach that are oddly similar. While that sounds strange, they are closely tied. With these companies, they're basically brothers and sisters. But Polestar does want to differentiate itself away from Volvo, in a good way, because often it gets criticism that Polestar is too similar to Volvo's. And I think that's completely ridiculous. While they do have similarities, I don't think it's fair to say that they're extremely similar. Some people would often call a Polestar a Volvo, but in my opinion, that's like calling a Porsche a VW. It's completely ridiculous. Or calling a Lamborghini a VW. And to a certain extent, a lot of people do actually, ironically. But this has been the car industry's secret for decades. Companies have always relied on each other to make fantastic car. But that's like calling the Bugatti Chiron a VW. But companies have always shared expertise, especially in an industry like this that is extremely capital intensive. And this is why I'd like to take a look at the Polestar 4 and the Volvo EX30. Both cars are some of my favorite cars that both companies have provided to its customers. And I think the Polestar customers will love these vehicles individually. But what car is right for you? What car is right for me? What car is right for us? They're very similar, but different at the same time. I feel like the Volvo EX30 is what I expected a Polestar 4 to be. But again, Polestar didn't want to look too similar to a Volvo, so it had to go to a Polestar route. Polestar could have easily made the Polestar 4 look very similar to the EX30. They could have easily done that. Just use the same platform. Polestar decided otherwise. They're going to give you the same amount of space or similar amount of space in this similar size car. The EX30 will be higher up off the ground, while the EX30 is still a small coupe SUV. The Polestar aims to do something similar, but in their own way. And Polestar has an incredible design direction. Their design philosophy is absolutely wonderful. And this is something that they developed from Volvo. This has always been part of Volvo's brand identity, Volvo's secret, but Volvo just never introduced it. They tried to attempt to introduce it with the Polestar 2 and the Polestar 1, both vehicles of which were originally meant to be Volvo vehicles, but they were later adopted to become Polestar's vehicles as the brand branched out and became its own thing. So Volvo has always had these hidden secrets, they just never unleashed it. And it's only recently that the Volvo vehicles have really been taken on this modern, stylistic identity. There was a time that people would not be impressed if you had a Volvo vehicle. Now it's actually quite impressive if you have a Volvo vehicle because Volvo makes beautiful vehicles, especially now. People are actually looking forward to owning a Volvo. It's something to be proud of because the design philosophy is also in itself wonderfully beautiful. And if there's any Volvo fans out there, you'll know what I mean. And I've always liked Volvo vehicles. I've liked Volvo vehicles since 2012 or 2013 and later started to like Polestar, of course. But I've always liked the brand. I don't know why. But I've never owned a Volvo vehicle, and to be honest, if I had to, I would probably go with the EX30, especially it's a great vehicle to start with. It reminds me of the Rivian R3 and R3X. They're oddly similar, probably in size, shape, and everything, but they're for slightly different purposes. Rivian is mostly for adventure and off-roading and camping. The Polestar is for all sorts of situations, everyday driving, family, small vehicle, which makes it really unique, but similar to the Rivian R3 and R3X. And this, I believe, is a good thing because the Rivian R3 and R3X will target a similar price to the Volvo EX30, while the Polestar 4 will target a more high premium price tag, somewhere similar to a Porsche. So apparently there's no spec for a Polestar 4 with the back glass. Instead, the brand fits a rear-facing camera to fill the visibility gap. And I believe this is done wonderfully. Absolutely genius. I've seen this in action, not in person, in video, and it's rather impressive. And I think the Polestar 4, it will give you sort of like a cabin kind of experience in the rear. It'll give you sort of like a small limo kind of experience. It's a luxury car, and it will give you that experience. I've recently seen this car in person, not up close, but at a distance. It was being unveiled at the Polestar store, and it was in gold. I didn't get to see the interior, but I did see the exterior, and it looks exactly what I intended to look like. And what I've always sort of suggested is that the Polestar 4 and the Polestar 3 design and the size are not that different. The Polestar 3 is supposed to be this big SUV, but the Polestar 4 is actually quite similar in size, surprisingly. And that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to have a SUV size. But for some reason, they made it have a sedan body. And I think it will just take time for us to get used to it. So let's look at the final detail. The Volvo EX30 starting at $36,000 US. And thankfully, I've already seen like 3 of these vehicles on the UK road, and I've been really amazed by these vehicles in person. It just made me like the vehicle even more. So the price of the 2025 Volvo EX30 starts at $36,000 US, and it goes up to $47,895. The core single motor starts at $36,000. The plus single motor starts at $40,000. The ultra single motor, $41,895. The plus twin motor starts at $46,000. The ultimate twin motor starts at $47,895. So that's quite reasonable, especially for a vehicle of its size, and it's a fully electric vehicle. Now, if we have a look at the Polestar 4, it's a completely different story. This vehicle in the US, it starts at $56,300. Absolutely incredible price tag for this sort of vehicle. But it's a more performance vehicle. In fact, this was said to be Polestar's highest performing vehicle that they've ever produced so far. So this is rather impressive. But that's the starting price for a single motor of $56,000 US. The dual motor starting price is $64,000 and the dual motor performance $74,300. That's not a cheap car in any capacity. So while they might be similar in size, they're for completely different purposes, as you can tell. The 0 to 60 time in a single motor model will be 6.5 seconds, 0 to 60, while a dual motor can accomplish that in approximately 3.5 seconds. So that is a high performance car. And the thing is that because it's 3.5 seconds, I guarantee you, Polestar will offer you plenty of upgrades at a purchasable price. So you can upgrade the performance of this car over time, but it will cost more. And this is one of Polestar's secrets to making more money. And it's something that a lot of brands are doing, but I noticed that Polestar is doing it to the limit. They really like to sell these vehicles, with less performance, so they can charge you more over time. And don't get me wrong, if I was running a company, I would do the exact same thing. Because these brands, they need to make money over time. Not just by selling new cars, but they need to find additional ways to make money. And that's part of the secret. So the end-to-end conclusion is that they're both really brilliant option, but for slightly different purpose. The Volvo EX30 is perfect for a small family. It's perfect if you want an electric vehicle with plenty of space, but obviously not too expensive. And if you want to do around the city driving, while the Polestar 4 is more for performance driving, it's more for, someone who wants that performance, wants that extra luxury. It's also extremely luxurious. In terms of interior quality and design, the Polestar 4 wins without a doubt. And I would argue with the exterior, the Polestar 4 wins as well. But I still wanted to just check out both of these cars and give my opinion because I really like them both. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.